Pareto charts are a great quality tool for figuring out not only what your problem or problems are, but also which ones are most important and contribute the greatest amount to the overall quality issue. So let's say we're a food manufacturer that's producing potato chips, and we have customers calling and complaining about various aspects of these potato chips. Maybe they say they got a bag that's stale. Maybe they say the bag's not sealing properly. Maybe they say some of the chips are burnt. Maybe they say the chips just taste funny. So which of these problems is actually a real quality issue that we need to take care of, and which of these is just something that may have happened somewhere in the supply chain? Maybe we had some customers say that the chips are stale because they were left on the shelf too long and should have been pulled earlier. And that's where our Pareto charts come in handy. So in this lecture, we'll figure out how do we construct a Pareto chart for any given product, service, or process with quality problems. Because even though as food scientists we're focusing on food products, we can also use these for our processes that make the food products, or any service that we're providing that relates to food products, such as food service. So as a brief overview and reminder of what Pareto charts are, they're named after Alfredo Pareto for his method of characterizing wealth distribution in Europe. And remember, we rank our data from order of most often occurred to least often occurred. So these here on the far left are our vital few. Those are the categories that really dominate the ranking, and that's where we're seeing most of our problems occur. Then we have the useful many occur off to the right. And finally, we have the other category, which is sort of a catch-all category that we're not sure where to put these other problems. So let's create a Pareto chart for a company that wants to improve its caramel-filled chocolates. So we have our chocolate and caramel right here. We've found out from some consumer data that we have several quality problems. So some of our caramels are grainy. Sometimes our candy pieces are broken. Sometimes the caramel inclusion is a little bit off center and maybe it leaks out of the candy, and so on. So we have our consumer data that we've collected, but we want to take this data and create a Pareto chart out of it. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do to create a Pareto chart in general is figure out how we want to classify this data. So do we want to classify it by the specific type of problem? Do we want to classify it by the cause of the problem? Maybe the broken candies and the off-center caramel inclusions come from the same problem. We can also classify by type of nonconformity, and there's different classifications that we can use. After we've decided how we want to classify the data, then we want to determine if our frequencies or how often we're posting data to a certain category is in terms of frequency, a weighted frequency where we're normalizing by some number, or dollars lost. When we've decided that, then we collect data for an appropriate time period. We want to make sure we have enough data points in our Pareto chart that we're getting a true representation of what's going on with this quality problem. We've got our data, so now we want to summarize it, and we want to rank order the categories from largest to smallest. So you can see that this data here, let's say we do have enough data to make a Pareto chart, but this is in order from largest to smallest. And so if we make this, we're going to get a very jagged sort of chart that won't tell us much. So we need to reorder our data first. If we're doing a cumulative percentage on our Pareto chart, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and when we see our Pareto chart, we want to be able to compute that before we even make the chart. And finally, when we have all our information together, we're going to construct our Pareto diagram and then identify the vital few. The vital few is what we're going to target because that's what's giving us the biggest portion of our quality problem. So let's take a look at what our Pareto chart looks like. Let's say we have enough data, and we're going to categorize our problems by the categories that were collected in our consumer data. So if we look here, our grainy caramels, our hard candies, and our off-centers are our greatest problems. So we should probably target fixing these problems. Take a look at our process, see what is going wrong that's causing our caramel to be too grainy or too hard. Now let's take a look at our cumulative frequency. This is what the cumulative frequency line looks like. What's going on here is that each of these dots is the cumulative total of itself and all of the data before it. So our grainy shows up at about 36, so that's where this dot is. Then we're going to take the hard data, which is somewhere between 24 and 26, and add that to 36. So this is going to be in the mid-60s right here. That's what this dot is. For our off-center, we're going to take the number of off-centered problems and add it to the two before it, and we get about 80% frequency cumulative right here. So we keep doing this as we go along, and you can see our line starts to tail off. Our slope starts to go way down. And yes, it does jump in the other category because the other category is a multitude of problems and so contains more data than the single categories right here. But the main thing is that you do see this tailing off and you see less and less addition until you finally get to 100% in your last category. And that's a good check to make sure that you did this correctly, is that you should end up at 100% at the end of your chart. Now that we've made our Pareto chart for candy, we can start locking down what is really going wrong in our process using the vital few and start making improvements with our process so that our customers are more happy with their candy and more likely to buy it.